all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world. She walks into mine.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
There's no crying in baseball.
You talking to me?
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet.
Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
You can't handle the truth!
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hello, everybody, and welcome again to the Old School Movie Club podcast. I am Sean, joined with my friend Kevin. Kevin, how are you doing this week?
Hey, everybody. I'm pretty good. How are you, Sean?
Pretty good. You just got back from seeing a classic movie before we recorded this? What movie was
that? Yeah. That's true. I didn't tell you. I went and saw Clue.
I've never seen Clue.
Classic 1980s murder mystery comedy based on the board game.
Well,
it was pretty dope. I had never seen it before, and in this particular screening at the theater that I went to, it's like the big thing with this movie is it has 3 separate endings. And when it first came out, you had to see Clue 3 times in order to see all 3 endings. But with this screening, they went ahead and put all 3 endings back to back to back.
I've heard really good things about Clue.
Yeah, man, that was brilliant. One of the best comedies I've ever seen, both in terms of verbal comedy and physical comedy.
So it is a comedy that doesn't take itself seriously at all?
Oh, no. Not,
okay.
Not at all.
Interesting. I didn't actually know it was a comedy, but I was trying to find somewhat of a segue into our Halloween month, or what we've been calling our horror month. This week we actually had Halloween. Last week we had The Evil Dead to kick off our horror month. This week we have Halloween, and then going up further we'll have The Shining and Psycho. But this week's film, the Halloween, really, really big slasher film back in the late 70s, early 80s, that drive-in movie theater era, where this completely took over. Kevin, what was your thoughts? Because the whole point of the show is we've never seen these movies, but I know we have a lot of big hopes for going into some of these films, and some of them just don't deliver. And because I already kind of talked to you a little bit about this, what was your thoughts on Halloween?
Yeah, a lot of people kind of tote this film as being the first slasher film, the one to start the entire slasher genre.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've heard too. It's this started it all.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of lists too that have Halloween listed as the #1 slasher film of all time, which is fine. I'm okay with people having that opinion. I see that. I can understand why people really liked it. I just thought, considering its legendary status and the hype around the film, even now, it's almost 40 years later, I think I went in with expectations that were way too high.
Almost 40 years later, and just think of how many, sequels and reboots this is, started,
Yeah, I think there's 10 Halloween films.
The main antagonist, Michael Myers, is a giant thing for horror films.
Yeah, and saying it's I can understand why people really love this. A lot of people praise it for its simplicity, showing that you don't need all the blood and gore and violence in order to create that sense of dread. But I'll go ahead and jump into my biggest problem with the film is that with a horror film, I want to be scared.
Yeah.
And this didn't scare me.
No. And I don't like horror films, and this didn't scare me at all. And
there wasn't a single time where I felt scared for the characters either.
No, I felt a little suspense, but it wasn't it wasn't overwhelming or anything like that. I kind of knew where it was going. They had a few, it wasn't scary suspense though. It was just is it gonna happen now? Is it gonna happen now? No. Okay, it's happening now. That's That's all it was. But I went into this film, And it does show you that you can do all this stuff without all the blood and stuff. My first initial thought going into this film, and one of the reasons I don't like scary movies, is I don't like gore fests and stuff. And that's what I kind of thought Halloween was supposed to be. And I didn't do any like real research before the film. I did a little bit of digging after the fact, but
Same. Like, I have a lot of friends who have seen Halloween before, of course, and a lot of friends that absolutely love it. And even with all that, I had never gone and done the research to see, oh, how bloody and violent is this?
I was expecting it to be really bloody, really violent, and that's part of the scary movies that I don't like. I don't like that kind of stuff, and I don't like cheap jump scares and stuff like that. And that's like really what I don't like about the horror genre, for the most part. But like,
yeah, and I don't care for cheap jump scares either. If it's a really good jump scare, I'll appreciate it. But I don't know, call me sick and twisted, but I love seeing a whole bunch of blood and gore and violence in my horror movies, especially if it's a slasher film, which is supposed to be centered around a serial killer. Yeah.
This film didn't have any of that. It had a little bit of blood, not as much as you would expect going into this film. Especially, I mean, I'm not saying like blood makes whatever, like this more scary. And
neither am I, because I've seen plenty of horror films that can create that sense of existential dread without there being any blood and violence. It's created by the environment of the movie.
So
this one, it can create a little bit of tension, but I just wasn't scared.
Yeah, but so it does create a little bit of tension, like I said, but it's not like this scary tension. It's more just like, all right, when is it gonna happen? Is it gonna like where is it like? Because it was so much buildup. It's about an hour of buildup and then 30 minutes of, Michael Myers going nuts. That's about what the movie is. Why do you think this is so highly thought of though in the horror genre? People, like you said, people love this movie, and it's at the top of some people's lists for the best slasher movie ever. And I just don't see that when watching this, like, not with, like, nostalgia glasses on,
Well, see, I think it's because, like I said already, a lot of people think that the simplicity of the film is what puts it over the top and makes it the greatest slasher film of all time.
But shouldn't you be scared when you're watching a horror film? Even if it does do a lot of things really, really well? Can you even call this a horror film if it doesn't, like, it really doesn't even scare me, and I'm like a big chicken when it comes to horror films, so.
Yeah, it didn't scare me. I mean, it's still a horror film because it is based on a serial killer. But I don't know. I mean, I've gone on record on Twitter saying that if a horror movie doesn't scare me, then I can't personally give it a score higher than a 7 out of 10.
Yeah. And a lot of people will be mad about that too.
I mean, for me, I believe the purpose of a horror film is to scare or create that sense of dread and whatnot in the audience and its viewers. And I didn't get that from this film. Now, that's not saying that this is a bad film. By no means is it bad.
No,
I still really liked it.
I actually enjoyed it as a film, but like with you,
because there's so much more to it
horror movies
to love than the fact that it's missing the blood and violence that I was hoping for.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed that they kept that kind of stuff out of it. It made it more of a suspense thriller for me more than a horror film. Because like you said, when you go into a horror film, you expect to be scared. I wasn't really scared at any point in this movie. The most I ever felt was okay, like, is it when is he gonna strike? Is basically like what I felt the whole time, and I was just more taking in, the cinematography and the music in this movie, or the sound of this movie, which I think they do a really, really good job with that eerie, theme of the movie. Yeah,
and it like you said about the suspense, it is a highly suspenseful film. It doesn't feature the same kind of blood and gore and all that that you find in like A Nightmare on Elm Street or the Child's Play and Chucky movies. And even though, the Child's Play / Chucky franchise, none of those films are particularly great because they don't take themselves seriously. They're just, they kind of satire the slasher genre.
Yeah.
But, those are just absolute bloodbaths.
Yeah. And
those
a big reason why I don't
those are so
like
much
those
fun.
movies.
They're not great films. I don't think I've given any of them more than like a 3 or 3.5 out of 5, but they're still so much fun to watch. Halloween is definitely a better film because there's so much more going on that pushes it higher. Again, I'll go ahead and say it now. It's, a lot earlier in the show than we normally do this, but my score for this is a 3.5 out of 5 because I think this movie does everything perfectly except it lacks that violence.
Yeah, except it doesn't scare you.
Doesn't scare me.
Yeah, it does. And that's a weird thing, especially with a movie so highly thought of in the whole horror genre. And, this started like we were saying earlier, this was one of the slasher films that kind of started it all. And it's hard to see coming from it from our perspective, being in 2017 and seeing some of the horror films we've seen and everything. Maybe we're just desensitized to things and maybe it was scarier back then. But it
probably was because we've taken scares to multiple higher levels with horror movies modern day.
Yeah. And I'll give it that, but watching it in 2017, unless you've seen it before and you have those that nostalgia for it, it doesn't hit the mark for a horror movie. For just a movie, like a suspense movie, a thriller, it's actually pretty decent. I thought it was I would probably give it about the same as you. I know that's a lot earlier in the show than we usually do it, but I'd probably be right around 3.5 out of 5. But I would struggle recommending this to someone that wants to be scared, wants to see a horror film. I'm well, Halloween, it has a really good reputation, but it's not really, if you've never seen it before, it's probably not going to scare you.
Right. This is a film that I could definitely recommend to somebody who's looking to take a step into horror had they not previously explored the genre before. This is a good first step or second step into the genre.
Yeah. And I'm not really experienced with the horror genre itself, but I have seen scary movies. There's a reason why I don't like scary movies, because when I was younger in my teens, I would be up all night thinking about what I just saw. And this kind of movie, I think even back then wouldn't scare me as much. And I think I kind of agree with you. If you want to get into the horror genre, I would go and watch this, because at the very least, even if it doesn't scare you, you at least get to see where a lot of these slasher films and stuff started from. And these actors that were Jamie Lee Curtis, one of the Scream Queens, this is one of her first movies, if not her first movie.
This is her first. It is her film debut. And
she's if you don't know who Jamie Lee Curtis is, if you've never watched The Walking Dead, she is, she's a big actor now.
Yeah, and she was incredible in this movie.
Yeah, and I think that's another one of the bright spots where the acting was lacking in the supporting roles, I think, a lot of the time, but Jamie Lee Curtis was actually really, really good in this film. I was actually kind of surprised, since I didn't know if it was her first film, but I knew it was really, really early on in her career, and it did kind of surprise me how well, and she earned that Scream Queen moniker, because towards the end of the movie, when things are actually hitting the fan, she does have, that perfect horror scream for this movie.
Did you stick through and watch any bit of the credits of this movie?
I did not. I didn't know there was anything after the credits.
No, there's not anything after the credits, but in the credits, it credits Michael at age 6, when we see him at the beginning of the movie as a young boy.
Another good twist for me at the beginning of the movie when they reveal that, and you're like, oh wait, that's I was not expecting that at all.
Right, he was 6 years old when he had his first kill.
Yeah.
At that point, I thought we were already dealing with adult Michael.
So I was already
But-
that got me invested into the whole story though. Like that
Yeah, it did.
opening, I was like, okay, I'm in. I'm into this movie now.
Yeah, but so in the credits it had Michael age 6, and then it also credited Michael age 23, which of course is the adult Michael that we see throughout the majority of the movie.
You only see his actual face like for a split second.
Right. But now do the math here. What's 23 minus 6?
18. Or sorry. 17.
17.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
he's supposed to be 21.
It's saying in the
15
credits
years
that
later.
the two versions of Michael that we have in this movie are 17 years apart.
But they always say
but-
15 years apart.
Say that again?
They always say 15 years apart in the movie.
Yeah. It says that it starts off in 1963 and then it fast forwards to 1978.
Yeah.
That's only 15 years. So, I mean, that's just a very, very little thing to nitpick, but somebody did not math well
Someone
when
did
they were
not
making
math
this movie.
correctly. So I was like, I knew he was 21 in the thing because he said, I knew it was 1970. I couldn't remember exactly the beginning date, the 1963, but they say multiple times in the film, I've been around him for 15 years. He's been in here for 15 years and stuff like that. So I knew he was 21, because they also say his previous age was 6. And then
Yep.
I just did the math myself, 21. And that's kind of funny that you see that. I was not looking for that in the credit scenes. I kind of saw like Jamie Lee Curtis's name and all that stuff, but I didn't see the Michael age 23. That's kind of funny.
Yeah. And again, that's a very small thing to nitpick. Being a teacher, that math error bugged me a little bit.
It's funny that no one's ever gone back and changed it in further releases, you know?
Right? They've had 39 years to go back and fix that.
Maybe
now.
no one's picked it up yet, Kevin. You're the first one.
Maybe I am. Probably not, though.
Probably not. It's probably on the Wikipedia page we're looking at right now. Famous
I
mistakes.
doubt it. Maybe they would put that down in like a little trivia section or a footnote thing on IMDb.
So, what did you think about so John Carpenter actually wrote the screenplay for this film and scored it, which I think is very, very impressive because the score is not bad. Well, it's very, very simple, which goes with the whole movie, just the simplicity of it. It's very haunting, that theme of Halloween. You know it as soon as you hear that slow, or that like kind of 1-2 note piano playing. You know,
right.
As soon as it comes in, and you're like, I remember, like, even not ever seeing Halloween, you know that theme. It reminded me of, which is funny, it reminded me of the Goosebumps theme from, like, that TV show.
Yeah.
Which I know they probably took it from Halloween, or they definitely took it from Halloween, but it was funny how I was like, oh yeah, it kind of sounds like Goosebumps.
Right, and I'm glad you said, with us never having seen the film before seeing it within the past week, we still know the score.
Oh yeah.
The score is so
recognizable.
iconic, and it's brilliant. I mean, that is not just one of my favorite scores to listen to, during the month of October to get ready for Halloween. It's also just one of my favorite film scores in general.
And very, very simple. Like,
very
main
simple.
theme
Just
is
like the Jaws
super
score.
Simple, yeah.
Extremely simple, but effective and brilliant.
Yep. It is exactly what you want it to do. And that's kind of like you were saying earlier, that's kind of one of the things for this whole movie. It was very, very simple. There was no flashy, flashy effects.
I mean, they had to stay simple. They had a budget of $300,000.
I'm surprised it was even that high. Because if you look at it, once she starts babysitting, they only change scenes, really, like locations, 2 times. So they have the one camera that's situated like this throughout the entire movie, where it's looking at the house where Michael is. And then they have the location where they're in, and she's babysitting the kids. And then you have the other house. That's basically all you see for the last 45 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, it's not completely isolated to one location, but it is definitely claustrophobic at times, especially in that last 30 minutes when Michael is going from the one house across the street over to the house where Laurie is babysitting the kids.
Yeah, and you see that, that she has nowhere really to go. She's trying to, by the way, that guy's a jerk. the person that kind of just turns her away and is like, whatever, it's just some stupid kid. She's like screaming her clothes are ripped, and he just like rolls up the curtains, or rolls up the blinds. He's like, get away from me.
Look, I mean, people did not make the greatest decisions in this movie.
Oh, another error. I don't actually know if this is an error, but that last scene in the movie where you just hear Michael's breathing, and it's going through kind of some of the shots. Now, he might have had multiple knives, which is actually what I'm thinking he had now, because he said he stole multiple knives, or he sold knives. But,
yeah. So
Jamie Lee Curtis gets the knife from him the first time, and then drops it on the floor in that living room.
After she stabbed him and he fell behind the couch.
And then you're thinking, oh, he picked it back up, that's why he has the knife now. When they're going through, the breathing's happening, you actually see the knife on the floor still. So, another little interesting kind of little thing. It might not even be a mistake, I might just be stupid. And it might be just he had multiple kitchen knives like that, but...
I mean, if you're a smart serial killer, you're going to carry multiple weapons in case one gets taken away.
But, again, like, I don't really like how she just kind of... There's like, little things where you're like, why aren't you just, like, watching him? I know you're scared, but he's gotten up already twice. Just, like, look at him. Just keep an eye on him. Don't turn your back on him. Don't drop the knife. What are you doing?
Yeah. It's another, it's another film where the characters are making stupid decisions, which is a very common thing in horror films.
Very,
because
very common thing in horror
if
films.
they make the smart decisions, the film ends real quick.
Yeah, that's true.
The smart decision here would be, all right, leave town. Granted, Michael stole a car and he was driving it around, but you could still manage to escape him somehow. He's not the quickest guy out there.
No, he walks very, very slowly.
Now, Jamie Lee Curtis's character is definitely one of the most BA women in horror films.
Oh yeah, she doesn't just run. She finds things around her and takes action.
She fights him off, but what disappointed me is that she doesn't get the final shot.
Well, it's not the final shot.
Well, no, the doctor comes in and shoots him.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm saying is, like, he's still, I mean, there's a Halloween 2 for reasons.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, there's many sequels. He didn't die, but I was hoping, or expecting, I should say, for this film to end with her assuming she had killed him.
Yeah. And, do you know, like, we've never seen the second one, so do you think that she knows that he is not dead? Because the doctor obviously knows that he is not dead, because he looks down and doesn't see his body. But do you think he would tell her? Because I think she's in the sequel as well, right?
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure again, haven't seen the sequel, but my assumption is that she does not know that Michael is still alive.
Interesting.
Because why would the doctor be like, hey, yeah, so I didn't kill him. Sorry. You're on your own again.
I just kind of let him go again. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
So, what did you think about the, getting back to John Carpenter? Great job on the score. The screenplay, it is what it is. It is very, very simple, and the dialogue isn't amazing, but it is realistic. It doesn't, like, take you out of the film, the script and everything. What did you think about his directing? Like, it's very, very, very simple. We've gone through this multiple times, but very, very simple. I personally like all of the cinematography and all the creative shots, especially when it's the first scene or the first sequence of the movie where it's going through Michael's point of view, and when he puts on the mask, you get the little... It is kind of corny and kind of cheesy, but I think it's really cool. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that opening sequence, I definitely thought it was a brilliant idea to show the first murder in the film through Michael's eyes.
And making sure you do not see his face until, like,
right.
that reveal.
And because at that point, they're still trying to hide the fact that he was only a 6-year-old kid.
Exactly. And they kind of hide the fact smartly, like, by not putting him next to a bunch of like they don't make him look small, you know?
Yeah, and one thing that helps that is the fact that his sister was sitting down.
Yep, exactly. That very
Had his sister been standing up, you'd have been like, wait a minute, that's a really tall woman.
Yeah. Very, very, very smart.
Yeah.
All right. Final thoughts on this film, Kevin? We've already gone over our scores, but just kind of a final wrap up. Anything else?
Yeah. So again, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. It's brilliantly directed. The writing is incredible. The score is amazing. The acting is great on behalf of Jamie Lee Curtis, as well as the actor who portrays the adult version of Michael. I just never felt scared, and I was hoping for some more violence.
As a strict horror film, I would rate this pretty low. But like I said, it's actually not. It's not a bad. If you're not looking, if you don't care about being scared and stuff, this is not a bad film by any means. It doesn't need to scare you to kind of grip you and, you know, give you an experience. And I'd go 3.5 out of 5 as well.
Yeah.
My final score.
And like a 3.5 is still a really good score, because if you go out of 10, that's a 7. And if you see on IMDb that a film has a rating of a 7 out of 10, like that's still a really good movie, because it's an average. More people are going to have scores above 7. Other people are going to have scores below 7, and that's fine too. But so a 7 is still a good score, and I say that because I have received some comments saying that I didn't like the movie despite giving it a 7.
It's not that we didn't like the movie. It's just we were expecting more, and not more as like good cinematography and all that. All like you said, all the score, the screenplay, the acting. That wasn't really disappointing to me. The disappointing part for both of us was the scares, and you wanted a little bit more, blood and everything, but it just was disappointing on that front. As far as the movie goes, it's still a good movie. Like you said, 7's not a bad score. I would still 100% recommend this to someone that just wanted like an hour and a half of fun. Like, just go watch. Have you ever seen Halloween? Go watch it.
Oh yeah, I mean, and this is definitely a film that I will watch every Halloween season going forward. Yeah,
it's a very light, like a light horror movie. You could, well, I was gonna say you could let kids watch this, and probably not. You probably shouldn't let kids watch this for other reasons, but
yeah, no, it's not my favorite Halloween themed movie. For that, I would recommend people watch it's a short, kind of anthology-ish structured movie called Trick or Treat, which is another kind of, I guess it's a slasher film, because it features a demon child, pretty much, named Sam.
Trick or Treat.
Who's in costume, and it's Halloween day, people are trick-or-treating, and he goes around and kills people who are breaking the rules of Halloween.
Oh, dang.
That's a really fun movie.
Dang. Well, okay, on that note. So Halloween, we both give it a 3.5 out of 5. Again, people who love Halloween, it's not a bad score. It's not that we didn't like the movie. It's just we were expecting a lot more. But I think
exactly.
We've had 2 pretty easy weeks with no scares, Kevin. This is coming from me. I know you want the scares. I don't want the scares. But
and it's not that I need jump scares necessarily. It's just I need to feel
you want to be
uneasy.
Yeah.
I want something in the movie to give me a reason to care or feel like there's something at stake.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll feel like that next week, Kevin.
Probably.
I have a feeling
because those
that I'm not
twins
going to
creep
enjoy
the
myself.
hell out of me already.
Yeah, I have a feeling I'm not going to enjoy myself. Twins are going to scare me for the rest of my life. So we're watching The Shining next week, and we'll actually be watching it. I think we'll be watching it together since Kevin is actually coming to town. So we're going to take a little time, watch it together, and then record it finally in the same studio. So maybe this audio quality go up a little bit. Not too much. We've got pretty good mics, but different experience next week. I'm gonna try to live stream it somehow. I don't know how it's gonna work. If we do get it to work, we'll tweet from our page, and I'm sure Kevin will retweet it and stuff like that, so you'll know where to find us. But I know you're probably really looking forward to this movie. I'm looking forward to it as far as a good film, but I'm also dreading it at the same time.
Yeah, I'm excited to finally sit down and watch The Shining for the first time. I am not looking forward to the 2 hour and 20 something minute runtime.
Oh man, I didn't even look at that.
Because
we've been getting off pretty easy with these last two.
Yeah, I know. Look at me complaining about runtimes again. I mean, because I do. But I mean, you don't typically see horror or thriller movies with a runtime longer than like an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah, that's long. Because like these last two movies, like I said, both in the horror genre, were about Halloween was an hour and a half, like right around there, and then The Evil Dead was even shorter than that, I believe, right?
Yeah,
like
an hour and
20
25 minutes, I think.
Yeah, and 2 hours and 20 minutes. That's gonna be. I'm not.
But one thing I am looking forward to
palpitations.
with The Shining, though, is it's not just praised as a great horror thriller film. It's also praised as just an all-around great film.
Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to that part of it.
I mean, this one is it's critically Halloween is critically acclaimed as well, just like everything that we watch for this show. But I mean, The Shining had Oscar contention. I mean, you've got an iconic, legendary director in Stanley Kubrick.
An Oscar contention, which is really, really, really rare for this genre. Like,
right.
Like for horror films to win Oscars outside of like horror awards, you know.
Plus, arguably the most iconic performance in the career of Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I like Jack Nicholson a lot and everything that I've seen him in. But we have 2 movies I think on our list that he's in, and I'm looking forward to both of them. But The Shining, I'm looking forward to it for all those points. But again, I'm a little chicken. You know, I don't like scary movies, so we'll see how I feel after I watch it. Maybe I've actually over my whole scary thing, because these last few movies have not scared me at all, and I went and saw it and it was fine. But
yeah, it's possible. I mean, at the beginning of when the new year started, I wasn't into horror films, and now I'm willing to sit down and watch any horror film.
Yeah, that director for that documentary contacted you back that one time. That's pretty cool.
I mean, I just wrote. So it's Haunters: The Art of the Scare, directed by John Schnitzer. It's a documentary that I saw at Fantastic Fest, and I wrote a review for it on my website, and I shared it on social media and whatnot. And I'm Facebook friends with the director. He saw that I had written the review, read it, messaged me on Twitter saying that he loved it and wanted to put it up on IMDb as an external critic review, as well as on the film's website. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like I said, a little off topic, but it was a pretty cool story that I saw happen to you this past week, and
Yeah.
It's relevant to horror month. So, anyways, I think that's it for us. Next week, got The Shining. After that, with our big finale, we'll have the classic of all classic horror films, Psycho. And then we'll get back to some more lighthearted films after that, I think we need a break from these hard films.
I'd say it'll be nice when we get into
Let's get a comedy.
Thanksgiving and Christmas season, and we watch some more family films that are classics.
But Kevin, where can they find you?
You can find my reviews on kevwatchthefilm.com. Follow me on Twitter and Stardust at KevWatchTheFilm, on Letterboxd at KevWatchesFilms.
And you can follow the show on Twitter at OldSkoolMovieSK, and you can follow me on Letterboxd /PatPat. All right, Kevin.
Go watch movies.
Go watch movies.